Feel a lot of energy.
Governor, we're excited about you being governor, but we also, as John suggested, like to do the first draft of history here. So I do want to pin you down a bit on your consideration for a presidential run. As from what we've heard, it was much more extensive and much more significant and serious than you've let on in public. So I just want to run you through some of that. It's true that you had a pretty extensive series of meetings about what a presidential campaign would look like, correct?
Well, what I'd say, Mark, let me just sort of encapsulate the whole thing is I did a fair amount of homework. And actually, I talked to a number of people that had been involved in previous campaigns I've been part of because I appreciate their thought process and such. But at the same time, I always kept the eye on the ball to make sure we're doing good things in Michigan. So we did. Right. So I am a good nerd, so I tried to do my homework.
So part of that homework involved figuring out how much money you'd need to raise. We've heard you had a pretty extensive rollout plan, and even we heard that you actually had a tentative date to announce a candidacy on July 7th. Is that true?
No, I view that as speculation at that point, because as a practical matter, I never sat down and said this is the date I'm looking at. I mean, people talk about a lot of things in the process. There may have been people that are trying to give me advice coming up with dates, but as a practical matter, I hadn't picked any date for anything like that, because again, I had to go through the exercise I just did.
Right. So you weren't planning a run in any, you said you were doing your homework, you were doing research, but is it the case that until this week you were inclined to run for president and this week you decided not to, or that's not the case?
Well, what I'd say is this is the week I announced. I made a decision because, again, it's one of those things that in terms of people talking about the subject matter, it was a good way to highlight Michigan. It really brought attention to the state of Michigan when you're going through this exercise.
But Governor, I'm sorry, Governor, if I could try with all due respect, this is the week you announced it. As John said, this is also the week your efforts to help find a way to pay for roads in Michigan, transportation in Michigan went down. How should we not see there's some linkage there, given that up until this week, until the ballot measure went down, you seem to be moving ahead with fundraising plans, announcement plans, scheduling plans for a presidential campaign. There must be some linkage, it would seem. Well,
again, I wouldn't necessarily draw that conclusion, because, again, what it means is I had a whole series of issues I just covered with John that I thought are important issues for Michigan. Added that list is one that might have been otherwise solved, which is the transportation issue. But that's one of several issues that were really part of the consideration.
I'll just try one more time. Why did you announce it this week, then?
Well, again, the speculation was actually becoming a distraction from me doing the job as governor of Michigan. Because one thing I don't want people to confuse, because I've been quite clear, I want to go tell the Michigan story. I think it's a great story of our comeback, and I think it is a model for the country. And I believe we need a problem solver in Washington. So I want to continue that dialogue, but I actually think ability by just clarifying things to say I'm not running, but I still think there's an important message that went on in Michigan, going on in Michigan, and will continue to be important in the, I hope, the national dialogue to see what a great place we are and how we can help solve national issues.
So